Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Sorry, it's a little bit late start, my bad. Let's get right into the pre-show with Russ Cohen.
So let's talk NFL franchise tags because today is NFL franchise tag day. And Hank, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what it is, but basically, even if a player wants to leave your team, if you want to tag him and pay him market value, he has to stay. It doesn't matter.
This has been an NHL debate for a long time among players and agents and stuff like that. The NHL wants to do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, but the one thing about the franchise tag that people don't realize, you have to qualify the player at a top 5 at his position.
Yeah, market rate at that position. Yes. Right. Yep. And so they get top 5, and that's a great point. And so of course Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, is the first guy that comes up because they only have signed him to 1-year deals, and like he'll get franchised and he'll still make $30 million. And I would think he got like 28 or something last year.
Right.
And so it's a great salary, but they're not giving him security. And the most interesting conversation did come up today, and that was, well, they handed the money to Tony Romo awfully fast. What is it about Dak Prescott that they won't do? And, he's done everything you'd want him to do as a quarterback. I think you saw the difference in the Cowboys without him this year. So I don't get it.
Well, I mean, this year it makes the most sense, Russ, because he's coming off an injury. You don't, a serious injury. So
okay, so you're gonna. I get what you're saying. As a business, if that's the way you're going to handle it, you're going to lose the quarterback in the future. Like you're going to lose.
Yeah, right. But okay, last year I agree with your point of view. They should have given him the contract, but based on I think it was the Goff contract and other contracts, they didn't want to pay him $40 million because they still believed he was an unknown commodity. They didn't think he was, okay, is he at that upper echelon of quarterbacks? No, but we like him, so we're going to use the franchise tag. And then he gets hurt. This year, it makes sense to use the franchise tag. Eventually, they're going to have to crap or get off the pot, and it's going to be like a Kirk Cousins situation where they at one point will say, no, we're not going to franchise you. And then he goes as a free agent, but he'll be 30 years old by then, and then he won't get the money.
The team that's going to be impacted the most will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won the Super Bowl, because Bruce Arians, when they were all up on stage and drunk, every time somebody got announced, basically said, you're staying with us. Your ass is going to stay here. You're going to be here. And like 2 or 3 of those guys could be franchised, but you can only franchise one. And so they have multiple free agents like Adamagan Sue, and I forget the linebacker's name. He's a free agent. And so there's 2 or 3 guys. Yeah. There's 2 or 3 guys there, and he took like 745 snaps in pass coverage this year, which is an immense amount. Like, you probably don't want to lose that guy. 6 sacks from Sue is okay, but
yeah, Russ. But you missed the edit of that. What Arians was saying on stage. He was like, "You're going to be back next year if you take what we want."
Yeah.
That's what it was. He's like, "If you take what we offer you." Like,
so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Tampa Bay because only one guy is going to get the tag. But anyhow, watch out for it. There'll be a lot of interesting things today.
Yeah, I think the NHL franchise thing would be a good idea actually. But my microphone's over here.
Depends how it's implemented.
That would be something we do for at some point, like before free agency comes in. Is what players would teams use franchise tags on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see. I do, and I think that I do like the idea of players, that are really like big stars in that town, staying in that town as much as we can. So that's what I think it does really well. Players don't love it because if they want to move, they can't. But they, like you say, they do get paid. So, I mean, let's face it, though, NFL players have a bad deal.
It does delay the inevitable in terms of a player wanting to get that long-term commitment. Yeah. I'm sure right now the Sabres would have wished that they could have had the franchise tag on Jeff Skinner.
Yeah. Very different world. All right, let's get started here. The 23rd, right?
Yes.
Well, Hockey World, it's Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I'm entering year 2 of my being excised from Canada.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday. At this time, fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And yes, Mike, being as close to Canada as you are, I guess this definitely is probably the longest you haven't gone to Canada in your life.
Yes, I wave at Canada every time I drive down the 190.
Was kind of like a place that you would go regularly even before you were covering the team?
My favorite, the place is closed. It closed a few years ago, but my favorite Chinese food place was in Fort Erie. I would cross the Peace Bridge, go to this place on Niagara Boulevard, get my takeout, come back over the bridge. And they'd always look at me weird, like, why were you in Canada? How long were you in Canada? 20 minutes to get what? To get pork fried rice? Yeah, it was the best place.
Listen, I would be skeptical too if I was the border crossing.
Well, hey, one
pork
time
fried rice is good pork fried rice. I mean, it's not easy to get. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
I mean, it
wasn't like I was hiding heroin in the side of my car.
Yeah, although you could have probably because they got used to you. That's a great cover.
It is a good cover.
Eventually.
China White. Anyway.
Yeah, so we're going to start today with a little bit more on Panarin because Russ wanted to clarify some things I thought was interesting. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I got an update on it from a source, and so the source is in Russia, and so basically there was a situation. Panarin didn't hit any woman or anything like that. There was a situation, and there are witnesses, right? So it's going to be a little complicated. But I was also told that it's not really politically motivated. So I think everybody jumping to that conclusion that it's politically motivated and has that to do with it, it may not. And I can't go any further because I only have a little bit more information. Right. After that, I may get some down the line. But it does make a good point because everybody, me included, our brains immediately go to the Putin thing, and we know that the coach was a Putin supporter. But again, that still doesn't mean Putin had anything to do with this. And so even though it looks like that, when I get information like this, and again, this isn't just Panarin, there's other factors involved here. So that's when you realize, okay, maybe there is more to this, and maybe it's not exactly what we thought. And I think that's the case.
Well, there's all kinds of levels to that. I mean, there could be all kinds of levels, and it is the kind of situation, like we said yesterday, that if it actually happened, it's of course horrible. And but you hate to draw conclusions on anything coming out of Russia based on the situation, and there's plenty of motivation for them to try to, paint Panarin in a bad light. And there's also the situation of maybe this happens and it doesn't get out unless Panarin does something stupid like that, or in their mind something's there's the other thing of that so this is something that that they were
back of sorts to Panarin because there was a situation, and so. Right. That's enough to, fire back at Panarin. But again, it doesn't mean it came from the top. It's very likely now that it didn't come from the top. So,
but it wasn't exactly stopped by the top either, which is one of these things you just don't know.
Right.
I'm not saying it should have been stopped. If it was something terrible, I'm not saying it should have. But how the Russian work. So. It's so hard. It is so hard to make any. I mean, this has to be an innocent until proven guilty type scenario that we have to play out.
There are witnesses, so who knows what will happen with that in Latvia, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I was so let's get into last night's games a little bit. And I also wanted to actually before we do that, my blog, and I'm working on the sellers and talking about we're going to get into sellers and buyers and all that stuff. Probably not till tomorrow now because then it is amazing how much more people are talking this year than they've ever talked before about trades. If I go to GMs or agents and things like that, this is literally. Usually I had this joke around here that I would make 10 phone calls and get maybe one thing out of it.
Yeah.
It's more like 3 or 4 this time for every 10 phone calls I'm making. It's just they're getting information. People are willing to talk and they are willing to. There are players. There are definitely agents who want to move their players to better situations. That's always a big scenario going on right now.
Yeah.
Agents who feel like their players are getting buried on the wrong line or in the wrong spot. Like they're being skinnered for lack of a better word. And they
we'll get a verb at that point
too, of course. But
that's a verb.
Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, so they're in this spot. So there's a lot more information. So we're going to get into sellers for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe a little today, but mostly tomorrow. But I definitely wanted to touch base on this. The fact that Henrik Lundqvist 45 minutes ago posts a video of him working out and taking shots. I think it's just great.
He's going to do that.
But I think it's great. It's encouraging, and you can sit back and you can say, is he ever going to play again in the NHL? Chances are small, of course, but with him, I just don't rule it out. Like at all. I can't.
You can't rule it out. He's definitely going to try.
Yeah,
but
he's going to try.
The day, the best analogy I could use is, Bobby Hull was on the New York Rangers. He played in a preseason game at the brand new Brendan Byrd Arena. I have the scorecard. He was in the lineup. He was next to his buddies from, the old Winnipeg team, and he played the game. He didn't have it, so then he stopped playing, and he never joined the New York Rangers.
Yeah.
Lundqvist is going to try with the Capitals. I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
Whether he's successful or not, again, I heard a story where Steve Carlton, a great pitcher, Omek, from the Philadelphia Phillies, at the end of his rope, threw a bullpen session for the Yankees, and it was so bad the Yankees were just like, we can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So you don't know. So, of course, he's going to show that. And I think it's good motivation for him mentally because he's feeling good, and I feel good about that for him.
Yeah. I don't begrudge him the, trying and, getting back into good physical shape after a major surgery. Do I expect him to ever play in the NHL again? No. But, if he wants to try, God bless him. I hope he makes it. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those guys you want to root for, and that he's going to give everything he has to doing it. And I think it's one thing we know for sure, and we didn't really know this until after last year, is how much Lundqvist still wants to play. He definitely still wants to play.
He's burning to play. There's no question, and you're right. That question's been answered.
That was definitely an iffy thing for a long time. Yeah. Would he, even if he want to play in the NHL, would he go back to Sweden and play? Things like that. We heard all these things. He definitely wants to play, and he wants to play in the NHL. There's no question about it. So
I would not rule out Sweden now, though, by the way. If he tries for the NHL and it doesn't work out, who's to say he hasn't had a change of heart and wouldn't go back and play in Sweden?
Yeah, I think that's possible.
I mean, he could play occasionally, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he maybe not have the workload that he had with the Rangers all those years, but if he wanted to just to still keep the fires burning and play, why not?
Although we do have a lot of teams that really, and obviously the Capitals would have the first shot at him and everything like that.
He's under contract, actually.
Yeah, he's still paid. So
right, he's still under contract.
It's the Capitals or bust. He's on long-term injury right now, so if he comes back this year, which, like I said, is highly unlikely, it's with the Capitals unless they trade his rights.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing about him coming back, Ek, even if he looks good, getting cleared by a doctor to do so is going to be nearly impossible in a COVID situation too.
True. That's true. So let's move on to some of the games from last night. And I just wanted to start with the game that I was watching because, usually I have my go-to games, but every once in a while I like to just try to pick a game that I would never really normally watch. And that's what happened with me last night. I watched Florida and Dallas. And, it's just it's a game I don't think a lot of you guys are out there were probably watching on the Sunrise package. It's not two really high-profile teams. But, obviously Florida's it's got the second best winning percentage in the NHL right now behind Toronto. And they're playing really well. Dallas, still has, a strong team, obviously, from the Stanley Cup final last year. And watching this game, I've seen Florida like 3 or 4 times this year, but this was the first time that I looked at the Florida Panthers and said to myself, geez, these guys are really good. They're better than we thought, and they have the ability to dominate games at times. And it was crazy to watch them do this to a Dallas team that we know is good defensively. Granted, this Dallas team was, just coming back after having not played for quite a while because they missed a lot of games due to the blackouts in Texas and all that. But this game wasn't close. 50 shots were 52-23 or something like that in favor of the Florida Panthers. And this is we've seen the Panthers, go up and down and over the years and have their runs at the end of the year where they try to make the playoffs. So usually the Panthers' MO is usually that, start off really poorly, then make a big burst and try to make the playoffs. Sometimes make it, sometimes not. But this Panthers team, it's a serious team. These guys. They
never thought it was serious. I think the problem was we thought, hey, how are they going to overcome their goaltending situation if Bob isn't there? And I picked them to make the playoffs last year, and they were completely the opposite. So we knew the talent was there, but we didn't know if it would get activated.
Yeah, and it really has. They really have a great buy-in. And the thing that we're seeing, honestly, and it's interesting when players develop later, but what we're seeing from Huberdeau right now, here's a guy who's been on and off the trade market forever. He's been back and forth, and I've written rumors about him for years. People are going to trade for Huberdeau. There's no way he's getting moved. He's an untouchable now, and he is.
Yeah.
He is ridiculously good right now. He's just making. He does remind me a lot of watching him play and skate like Couturier, in a lot of ways. Like there's.
It's funny. 2-3 years ago, he looked like he was on this massive zenith. Then he leveled off for a couple of years. Yeah. Now he looks like he's back on there, and because he's always had the talent. Yeah. I'm happy to see him put it together.
No, I really am too, and it's interesting to see a place that has some fans in the stadium too. Like they definitely have. They have a higher, I think, percentage. They have like 25% or something like that there. So they have 4.
Yeah, but how many are showing?
There's a lot of people. I mean, you actually hear the crowd reacting for real, which is nice. That's nice. I mean, it's not, it's granted, it's not, it's still not a building full of fans, but it's something. And watching them play, I mean, Dallas obviously has issues too. Dallas was making a lot of bad defensive plays for sure. They were the Panthers were skating around them. I mean, a lot of the time Dallas was really looked like they were standing still, but there was some enormously interesting stuff to watch. And the Panthers, they took 2 out of 3 from Tampa. They're leading that division again. I don't know.
Well, listen, they're a dangerous team. Barkov definitely could be a superstar in the league. He's always gotten close. He sort of straddled the line at times. Ekblad's back. He's got 4 or 5 goals. Nobody's happier than see that.
Does anyone have a longer stick than Aaron Ekblad? Like watching him play.
Only Sam Morin. I mean, it's only because I told him to get a longer stick.
Getting weird echo, Mike, I think, from you when you came back in.
In practice. Me and Panach.
What's that?
When you came back in, Mike, a weird echo.
Yeah, there is a weird echo, Mike.
My voice from you. I don't know why.
Okay. No, actually, the Sam Morin story is real. At rookie camp,
go ahead.
Tim Panaccio was, and I noticed at the same time how short his stick was for him.
Okay.
And, he's a big 6'6", 6'7" guy, and and Panach said something to him, and he said something about his stick, and he goes, "Do you feel like your stick's too short, or you can get a longer stick?" And he goes, "No, I didn't know." And I'm like, "Yeah, you could petition the league and get a longer stick." And Sam was like, "Okay, I'm going to talk to my agent about it."
Really?
It's a real situation.
That is crazy. I mean, Ekblad can literally stand on the faceoff dot.
Yeah.
And reach the boards.
Yeah.
I saw him do it at one point. I'm like, his skates were on the touching the faceoff dot in the offensive zone, and I'm gonna make a log out on what's going on with my voice, but
yeah, I mean, I don't hear anything wrong with it. Like
it's weird. It's definitely
there is something underneath you, for sure.
I'm better now, maybe. All right.
Yeah, you are better.
All right, but yeah, watching. I mean, Ekblad. It always amazes me when a guy like with a stick that long can make a move. Can even stick handle, because like you have to bring your stick in. Like stick handling. A lot of stick handling is bringing your stick into your body, and it's just like I mean, I think I talked before about that. I can't believe how long Provorov's stick is. Provorov has a crazy long stick for his size,
and he's a really good skater too, Ekblad.
Well,
he looked impressive. He's having a hell of a year. So he's already had more goals this year than he had last year.
And that's that's the good thing, because we've said for a couple of years that Ekblad was not the same player after the major concussion that he had. And there's been a lot of people noticing that he's sort of gotten back to where he was when he won Rookie of the Year and when he was establishing himself as a top flight defenseman. So
he had 41 points last year. He just wasn't scoring the goals. Now he's scoring the goals again.
And the other thing, I mean, I think I saw it was 20 that Florida had 27 shots in one period, and in that game, it's like,
wow.
Yeah, it was sort of bizarre. The 2 games that I was watching, one on the television, one on the computer, and we'll talk about the one that I watched.
Actually, it's not known for his fighting.
No. But
that
was a pretty good fight between Patrick Hornqvist and Klingberg, 2 guys who normally don't fight.
Well, it's really interesting that what Hornqvist brings to that team, because there's no question.
He brings exactly what he brought to the Penguins until they thought he didn't have it anymore. Then he threw the jersey basically in the street. Yeah. And I think he exercised the demons of the Penguins, and he's back to his old self.
It's amazing. I mean, he is and the Penguins missed what he had,
Oh, absolutely, they missed that. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
How many teams wouldn't want a guy who goes in front of the net and is a master deflection guy?
But they just had to have Mike Matheson, didn't they?
It's a crazy good trade. It's a crazy good trade by Zito and Florida, and it just he's like what they said, second among it's 33-year-olds and older. There's like a bunch of them who are scoring goals right now. Pavelski has 9 goals, I think.
And he's a real happy-go-lucky guy too. He really is.
I'll give Zito a lot of credit when it comes to the players who he added after he took over, that just sort of fit well into the construct of the team. Carter Verhaeghe, as a on a 2-year deal at $1 million a year, and they put him on the wing with Barkov, and he's scoring. I mean, he's one of these late bloomer type guys. He won a cup with Tampa last year. He was basically a fourth line, 13th forward type guy. Getting Duclair for $1.7 million, getting Wenberg off the scrap heap after
Wenberg does exactly what he did he makes them look a lot more like Columbus sometimes. It's interesting, because when Columbus misses Wenberg too, you can see that.
I think that's a Torts thing. I think that's a classic Torts thing, because Wenberg was fine. He did get rushed. Don't kid yourself. He got rushed to the NHL.
Yeah.
You want a guy to play number 1 center all of a sudden, or number 2 center, and he's a kid. It's a hard job, but he did well, and then all of a sudden his play faded, and then then we kept hearing bad things about him, like he's not playing well, and then he's gone. That's a typical Torts thing, and Wenberg had more talent than that.
And I wonder out loud.
Zito knew that.
Whether Quenneville did the thing with Yandel on purpose.
He did. There's no question.
To sort of unite that team, because clearly there was an uprising on that team to, don't do this to Yandel. He's got the consecutive game streak, and everybody united around Yandel, who apparently was a well-liked teammate, and look at the way the team is playing.
Yeah, I would liken it to this show. I think if we were playing hockey and I went up and I hit Mike in the junk, everybody would be like, but if I did it to Eck, everybody would be like, why'd you do it to Eck?
Right. It makes sense.
Thanks, Rob.
I don't think that this was necessarily. I think this is the this is
I think that's what they like Yandel, and I think Mike's right. I think Quenneville was contrived.
I mean, from what I've heard,
they don't like me is what you're saying.
From what I heard in this, and I know this story a lot about the story, but I think Quenneville kind of lucked out here. Honestly, I don't think this was a planned thing at all. But I do think that it worked out. It definitely worked out well for them. And there's no two ways about that. But Yandel was definitely something that the Quenneville had enough of after last season. That was basically it. Like, he was done with them. It did work out somehow, and
4 goals now.
I know, and he's a very important player. I mean, the team, they have that kind of controversy can turn into a positive thing for sure. It did, and Drager's a good goalie too.
I know, but how long? I mean, and look, I covered him in juniors. I thought he was pretty good. He definitely got lost in the shuffle, like a lot of goalies do. He's not a bad goalie. Could I have foreseen him taking a job away from Bobrovsky and being a number 1? No. I think what this is a situation where the coach likes him and doesn't trust the other guy, and that's just where they're at. Because Bob's winning
10-1-4, 10-1-3, 11-1-3, 11-1-3.
A week ago, they were both 5-1. So, the only difference between the two is who the coach liked. And yes, Dreger has a little better save percentage, but at the end of the day, it just mattered who the coach liked better, and that's really all that matters now.
See, I have to call him Dredger, because every time you say Drager, I think of Darren Drager. So
I know.
Yeah, no, I was impressed by that game. Then I watched a little bit. What did you guys watch last night? Did you guys?
I'll tell you what I watched. The main one that I watched, because I watched what Mike's going to talk about, but the main one I watched was Anaheim, because I wanted to see how Trevor Zegras was going to do. I appreciate what Anthony's saying that I called it on him. I mean, look, I think a lot of people could have called it on him. He's a terrific player. I do think he still was better than other people that were drafted ahead of him, but that's fine. I still don't like what I'm hearing, though, coming out of Anaheim. Well, they sent down Henrik and they brought him up, right? Center for center. If you think now that is a good thing to do with a young guy, to put him in that spot and hoping he sparks the offense, or hoping that now they can get hot and get in the playoff run because they're only a couple points out, to me, that's a bridge too far for any young guy. Now, he might be able to do it, but I wouldn't want to put that pressure on him. I would only want to see him play for 5 games, and I would rather see him go down and play more with the goals, simply because we talked about it the other day. Yeah. He had 9 points in 8 games, but the goaltending is substandard right now in the AHL. So you can't go by those numbers. And Zegras had some good plays last night. He got in front of the net. He made some good passes. He's a terrific skater. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen 30 games down the road.
I mean,
games this year.
Reward him. Give him a taste. Give him.
He definitely looked like phenomenal. Like he has
some smart guys. Like I got to clear this up because Arthur Franco goes, Russ, was that a reference to Turcotte? Yeah, it kind of is. Okay, go ahead. I like Turcotte too, but I think Zegras has a higher upside.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
No, I think that he's got a nice wow factor to him, and he's definitely
but
definitely got a good charisma to him. He's a star. He feels like a star. He feels like an
star. Here's where I agree with Russ. If you saw what the Anaheim Ducks Twitter feed did when they called up Zegras, it was like John the Baptist is coming to Jerusalem. I mean, calm the frig down. He's a great young player. Don't hype this like he's the second coming.
Yeah, the next 4 or 5 games he could buddy up with Ryan Getzlaf and learn the tricks of the trade, and all that stuff is great. But at the end of the day, he's probably not going to be the reason you either hang around the playoff circle or don't, and you're probably still going to be last in the division.
Yeah,
so
give him a full year in the American Hockey League. If you want to call him up after the trade deadline, fine. Give him a full year, allow him to grow, to get used to the pro game, and then when Getzlaf either leaves or maybe he re-signs for a much cheaper amount, then you put Zegras into a top 6 role. Do not rush him. Do not do it. It's stupid.
No, but to spark him, I think it's good.
Yes.
To expect the whole team to get sparked by a young player, that's more of an indictment of the team and hoping that a player can do that. But still,
give him a break here, guy. I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of excitement around the Anaheim Ducks this year. I mean,
but again,
you're the Anaheim Ducks Twitter feed. Give him a break. This is a fun thing to have happen.
No,
it is a fun thing. Yeah. It is a fun thing, but
good job to create excitement around the team.
I think the fans have a right to be excited because he is their next great center. I just don't want them to hope that he is going to put them over the top right now because of his existence.
Yeah, and if he goes 5 games and scores no points, those same fans who were excited by the Anaheim Ducks Twitter feed are going to say this guy's a friggin' bust. I mean, come on.
No, Anaheim fans won't do that.
I think you're making Ducks fans a little more stressed out than they really are.
Ducks fans today.
It's really not Ducks fans' way of doing things.
No, it's not.
But but I think he just has that factor. It's fun to watch. He's
I'm not disputing that. I think he's a great young player. I loved what I saw in the World Junior. I'm just saying, cool your jets. Don't rush the kid. Don't put too much pressure on him too early. There are very few 18 or 19-year-olds who can handle that kind of expectation and pressure. It's not fair to them to dump that all on them.
Here's what I feel is happening, though. In that market, because the Kings are on a 5-game winning streak and because the Ducks look kind of flat, I think Murray pushed the button because of that. That's my feeling.
I did want to talk about how hot the Kings were.
What do you think? Well, before that, though, what do you think about that?
I think that's a really interesting. I think that is an interesting move. Although you have to admit that if you're going to reward the guy for just the run he was on in the AHL, this is a good time to do it. So it doesn't hurt. There are a lot of things that was a perfect storm to a degree. It doesn't hurt that the Kings are.
When your next closest team is in the same situation you are, a rebuilding situation, and they've won 5 in a row. I have to feel that there's some pressure on them now.
Yeah. No, there is, and they have a chance. A legitimate chance at making the playoffs. Though the Ducks do. The Ducks that final playoff spot is wide open.
Yeah, but they're 3 points behind, and if Gibson plays, his ass off, I'm sure there's a 2% chance. I don't think it's much more than that.
No, 3 points behind who? They're behind Arizona, right?
Yeah. I think Arizona's in the last spot.
Or Minnesota. It's all these teams are all really tight in there. So I don't know. I haven't looked at the standings yet, but they're very much as good a chance as anybody.
They're still at the bottom of the division, even though they have a chance.
But so do the Kings. The Kings have a shot too, and what we're getting out of Dustin Brown this year is just
actually the Kings are in that spot, and
10 goals,
3 points behind them.
10 goals out of Dustin Brown.
Isn't that crazy? I really did not think that Dustin Brown had that left in him.
Well, of the trio of players that I'm sure any general manager who was controlling the Kings probably would love a compliance buyout on if you looked at it a couple of years ago. the one that was still producing at a certain level was Dustin Brown. He was still, I think he had 17 or 18 goals last year, which is, is respectable. It's not, not bang for buck what you're paying him less than $6 million. You'd like a little more out of a player making that kind of money than that, but he was still being effective. It was Carter and Quick who you were saying that's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Well, now,
Quick's playing well.
And Eck, Arthur also brings up Gabe Vilardi. If you remember, I've given updates on Gabe Vilardi on this show for the last 2 years because of his bad back. But last year he had a good year, and that's what I said. I mean, he came in 10 games, he had 7 points, and I thought he had a real good shot to stick this year and do well. And he's got 8 points in 17 games. He's a big guy with a great shot, and I'm a big Gabe Vilardi fan. So I'm happy that he's working out. It just shows the plethora of centers that they have. And look, he could play wing too. Yeah. The plethora of centers that the Kings have are unlike any other organization in the league.
But
they really have great prospects.
In terms of, young goaltenders in the league, people were talking about Demko. People were talking about Cal Peterson, even though his record is 3-4-1 right now. He's got a .926 save percentage. He's the better. He's playing the better of the two goaltenders. The Quick is getting,
and that is the biggest bungle of the Sabres that we have not put that much into, other than when it first happened, as to what has gone wrong with the Sabres in the last 4 or 5 years. Because there was a time they could have had him come early in from Notre Dame, and he would have signed there had he been given any kind of indication that he'd be the goalie, but they never seem to do that with him.
If you ask any reporter covering the Sabres, and you ask them, what is at the heart of their instability over the last few years, second line center, the overall defensive concept, it's the goaltending. I mean, Linus Ullmark is a good 1A, 1B type goaltender, but he's not a number one starter, and Carter Hutton is pathetic. And they don't have they don't have anybody who can spell Ullmark when he gets tired. And they play Ullmark too much. Yeah, the Hutton is, in my mind, almost a guaranteed loss. And Cal Peterson probably would have been a guy that would have been a tandem partner with Ullmark at this point. So, I mean, amongst the many things that are wrong right now with the Sabres organization, the foresight to sign Peterson when they could have is another one of a number of mistakes.
I was just going to say, I watched Peterson in the regionals like 2-3 years ago when it was Anders Bork last year. A lot of players were injured. There were a few good defenders, Bork and Peterson, and they went further than they ever should have gone because of Peterson.
Yeah.
And Zach in the chat is asking about Luukkonen. Luukkonen is playing in Rochester now, but the way the Sabres defense has played over the last year or so, I want Luukkonen to stay as far away from the Sabres right now. Let him play in the American Hockey League. Let him get experience. Yeah. If you rush him this year or next year, you are just creating another cluster F.
I feel like this is a good time to kind of look at the divisions because, we're starting to see some things. But teams are getting near 20 games. Like Toronto has 20 games, and I was corrected by a friend in Florida that the Florida Panthers have a higher winning percentage than the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are the number one winning percentage in the league right now, which I did not realize. So they're at 7.
Because they played 3 less games.
They're at 765, and the Leafs are at 750.
Yes.
But anyway, regardless, it's still impressive where Florida is to be even in that consideration. Mm-hmm. To me, so now don't look now, Mike, but the team trailing the Leafs in the division now is the Edmonton Oilers.
Is the team that missed the playoffs.
They're 8-2.
Yeah.
And they're
going to miss
8-2 in their last 10, and they have definitely Tippett is a great coach at times.
They are going to miss the playoffs.
We'll see. I do not think that
the battle of wills. I'm just
the reason that they're hot and the reason they're 8-2
I don't think it's possible to miss the playoffs.
is because Draisaitl and McDavid are nuclear hot right now. Anybody watch
they're on their team.
Anybody who watched McDavid against Calgary on Saturday?
Matthews is pretty hot too.
No, I'm not saying that he's not. I'm talking about Edmonton. We're not.
I know, but you sit there and say that the reason they're good is because they're hot. Yeah, that they're on their team. They're part of their team.
Let me finish my point. They're the only ones.
Yeah.
If they're not absolutely red hot, they will lose. And right now they're red hot, so they're winning. But when McDavid and Draisaitl play like mere mortals, which they will when they continue to run them 25 minutes a night, then they're screwed because they don't have a structure. They don't play great defensively. They don't have the good goaltending. They don't have secondary scoring. Other than that, what's the problem?
Yeah, but they're getting better in all those categories. I mean, they are.
Where?
Structure is improving. I watch them all the time, and then Tippett is getting this team in line. They're starting to be able to hold leads better. They're starting to be able to do the little things that they did last year that when they were starting to look very good. I just think that when you have two players like that, it's really hard to sit there and say they're not going to make the playoffs, because they really, at the end of the day, this division doesn't have enough. I mean, Montreal, okay, 4-5-1 in their last 10, falling back to earth a little bit, maybe.
Right, and the reason for that, and I've heard many people analyzing this, is because the 1-2 punch in Montreal, Kotkaniemi and Suzuki, have resorted back to the form that they played during the regular season last year and not the way that they played in the playoffs. And they needed those two guys to be difference makers up the middle like they were in the postseason, and they are not. So then they're at that point they're struggling offensively, and I'm looking right now at the Edmonton Oilers scoring. McDavid and Draisaitl are both over 30 points.
Right.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 18. Darnell Nurse has 16. Tyson Berry, who everybody thought that was a mistake, but he's a power play specialist, and he's got 8 power play points right now. He's got 16 points. After that, everybody is in single digits.
Right.
That's like the Buffalo Sabres have 4 players in double figures and the rest in single digits. What this tells me is this is a 3 to 4 man team. They continue to be that, and they don't have the structure past those guys. If they don't perform at that super high level, they will not win.
I know how to break this up. Here, this is a picture of me interviewing Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and trying to reach him.
Yeah.
Adam Kimmelman took the picture because he was laughing because he's such a big human being.
That is crazy.
With skates on.
No, I mean that is really something. I don't know. Let's go to another division for a second. The crazy.
Honestly, winner. Thank you.
No, not at all. I mean,
I don't know if you're the winner or not. You just yelled louder.
Everything you're saying, Mike, is insane, but I'm going to let it go. I'm too tired to fight it. But because I just think that at the end of the day, teams that have players that are that good in divisions that are this weak are going to make the playoffs. That's just. I mean, Russ, can you tell me whether you think the Oilers are going to make the playoffs or not? Just can you at least say that much?
I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
All right.
I think this is a hot take.
All right, we'll see. I really, really think you guys are wrong. But anyway,
I mean, you said that division is weak. I don't think. Yeah. I don't think Winnipeg has played up to their expectations, and now with Dubois, I think they're going to meet that. I think the Flames have been much better than they have played. So
I watched the Flames the other night. Last night, I thought they were good last night.
And God forbid if Vancouver ever gets their act straightened out.
I mean, this division is weak to start, but I agree with you that this could be a really tough division by the end of the year. I'm not saying it couldn't be. Yeah. But the really interesting thing in this division is, you could look at the goals for and the goals against. There's this big disparity there, right?
You could say the Flames suck, but they sucked less than the Leafs last night, so whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean 3-0 last night. They take out the Leafs, right? So
yeah,
with Michael Hutchinson in net.
With Michael Hutchinson in net, and with Zach Hyman, Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, and Jake Muzzin all out of the lineup. So. I mean, injuries are part of this, and every team has them. And the Leafs may struggle the next couple of weeks with a lot of key players out of their lineup, especially if Anderson did not. When I went off the show for a second, I was listening to the media availability for the Leafs, and Frederik Andersen did not practice today. Jack Campbell is back. If they have to rely on Michael Hutchinson, they're in deep trouble. Yeah. So they better hope that Jack Campbell can come back, because Jack Campbell at least can stop a puck.
Hector, one thing I took out of this game, besides saying, Calgary did what they needed to do and Sam Bennett had a good game, although Hutchinson helped him tremendously on that first goal. The Leafs on the power play are a team that has so much talent that everybody's doesn't want to be the guy to shoot. And if I were the coach, I would designate 2 shooters and 1 guy in front of the net and just say, if it's Riley passes to Marner. If Marner's not shooting, then get it to Matthews in front of the net or near the net. And if not, then recycle it around. I'm tired of this.
To their defense,
they're frustrated to watch.
No, to their defense, that was the first game this year that they used the all-in-one power play with Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, and Riley on the same unit. Because last year,
be 0 for 5, right?
What do you mean?
They were 0 for 5.
0 for 7.
0 for 7. So they should be
0 for 7 and had a minute and 36 2-man advantage that I think they got 2 shots on goal. But the thing was what Keefe did, and it was pretty effective, is that on the first power play they were using Thornton and Simmons in front of the net, and the second power play they'd move Nylander and Tavares, and that unit was sort of competing with the first unit. So you had this thing going back and forth, and they were both scoring. But now
that changes. The problem is you have too many players, two of the same kinds of players when you throw them all together. The issue is that when you're making $10 million, you should be able to play with 2 other guys that are making $10 million.
Right.
Even if you haven't played yet this year with them. To me, that's the
problems, don't we?
The reason, the reason that Tavares scored so many goals on the Leafs is because guys like Marner sometimes don't want to shoot.
Right.
Yeah, Marner can be kind of infuriating to watch at times.
But the thing is, now Marner is shooting more. He's been working on his shot. He's got a great
shot, obviously.
Yeah. So, but no, I think everybody was deferring to each other, and that's the reason why it was just not working.
And that second,
I like the idea, guys. I'm just throwing this out there.
Okay, I will never go to the Anchor Bar because I don't want to get murdered, and they don't have strip shows at the Anchor Bar unless you're talking about boneless, skinless wings. That's the only thing they strip there.
If the Oilers don't make the playoffs, Mike, I will personally see to it that you go on a date with Puck Crazed model.
Oh, okay, that's motivation.
I'll tell you that. A friend of my wife's, and I will personally make sure that happens because there's no 2 ways about it. I'm absolutely convinced. That's how sure.
We'll see.
Someone like this, so when they lose 6 or 7 in a row, this comes back.
Still be in it because that's the way this division is. I mean, it's just like this division is so.
Well, Winnipeg's going to rise, like Mike said. They're going to rise.
Winnipeg, I'm on the upside. Winnipeg is playing as good as they can play right now. Honestly, I think they are playing as well as they can, and I think Montreal was playing as well as they can. I do agree that Vancouver is waiting to explode, and you can see when you're
in the weeds. That is true.
When you watch Vancouver play, you do really. Sometimes there are parts of the game when you're like, this team is really good, and you might
be finally switching to Demko because what do you make, like 40-something saves the other night?
Yeah, I think they have to do that. They have to make a decision, and they also. But Peterson is.
Okay, hold on. So one of your takes this year was when we were talking about that, you backed Holtby, and I said Holtby. I'm worried about Holtby in Vancouver, and now you see why I was worried about Holtby in Vancouver.
Oh, you were right about that, 100%. I agree with you. Demko was just so uncertain, and Holtby,
I think Holtby was a.
I've always liked Holtby. I think
Holtby was a $4 million safety net.
I think it was a smart move. I think it was a really smart move for them, and I think at the end of the day, their goaltending tandem could be what gets them into the playoffs. But right now, it's not necessarily looking that way.
What division do you want to talk
about?
Right,
so let's go then. Let's go to the great East division, because this division is strange. The weirdest thing about this division is that last night the Islanders get a couple goals, so they go above. But before last night, how does this work when you're only playing teams in your own division? That Boston was the only team with a plus goal differential. I was trying to figure this out. How's that possible?
But the differentials are not that okay.
Right, it's not that big of a difference.
Right, but they should still be there should be somebody else in the positives. But today the Islanders are +1. I mean, that's kind of crazy. But beyond that, the Bruins are +1.
Remember, the differential in the division has to equal out to 0.
Right.
So right now the differential is +16 to -16. Boston's +15. Islanders are +1, and the rest of the division is -16. So
that makes sense.
It's just I mean, and it's close, but still, it shows how close this division actually is, and it's a lot closer than people think. This division, I think it is a lot
closer. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably going to shock you, but if the Flyers don't make that trade, they could be in jeopardy of not making the playoffs.
I agree. No, I totally agree. I don't think the
Flyers. Tell you a scenario now how that could happen.
Well, one thing I'll say is that the standings are in this division are slightly skewed because of the fact that the Devils have only played 13 games,
right?
And Pittsburgh and the Rangers have played 16, whereas like the Islanders have played. The Islanders have benefited from the fact that they're playing possibly the worst team in the NHL 3 times in the last week, and that's the Buffalo Sabres, who are 1-4 coming off COVID. Now that everything balances out, we know that they play.
Gotta beat somebody.
Right, you're going to face all these teams 8 times, but it does benefit you right now in the immediate moment that you're playing a team who came off 2 weeks of COVID, and the only team that they beat were the Devils.
Okay, I mean that's fair, but right now the way we're looking at the division, like I had said, I never planned on the Rangers making it. They're not making it, especially with Panarin out. They're not making it. So we take the Rangers out of it. The Devils are hanging in there. I don't know if the Devils are really going to do it. I think it's just going to come down to that 4th spot. Yeah. And honestly, the Flyers could slip out of that 4th spot. I mean, here's how this could happen. Carter Hart stays on this mid-level projection for this year where he's not great, he's not terrible, he's somewhere in the middle. You don't know when to use Elliott. Maybe you're still going to use him on the road. The defense isn't set. The defense is still having problems shooting the puck and actually getting points for them. Gostisbehere, he shoots so many times he can barely hit the net. Basically, they had 3 defensemen who have like, I want to say 8 points or less, and then there's like very little else. Gustafsson's not doing his job. He's got 7 assists, no goals. Again, everybody was brought in with all these high expectations, and it really has nothing to do with their forwards or who's injured on the forwards. It still has to do with the defense and how they're not producing offensively too, because you're missing Niskanen, which is 1 step away, and then I know Braun's out too. I get that, but at the end of the day, if they don't make this move on the blue line, I don't know if things get better on the blue line for them, and their goaltending isn't what it was last year. Not yet.
No, I think the Flyers are in I actually, first of all, I want to disagree with you on the Rangers. I think the fact that the Rangers are, I mean, granted, they played 16 games. When you look at winning percentage, they're low, but they're not out of this thing. The fact that they're not out of this thing to me is astonishing. Like, really, when the reality is that
on paper, sure.
Well,
but they have played terrible.
What's astonishing is that they're still in the race.
Yeah,
playing Kevin Rooney and Colin Blackwell and Phil DiGiuseppe and all these guys, the minutes that they're playing and not maximizing the opportunity for the young guys on this team.
Right.
I think
you finally got to play with top talent last game. You did.
Yes.
And they've won a couple games now in a row, and they are. I think if they go and trust a little bit more in Lafreniere, they'll go a lot further.
I think that there's sense in that for sure. Someone's asking me, do we think Friedman's going to clear? That's a good question because Friedman is the kind of depth defenseman that a lot of teams could use.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
It's true. I was really surprised by the move about playing.
I was a little surprised, and maybe I shouldn't be, about Luke Shen being waived.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mike. One other thing. Wayne Fish reported Nolan Patrick has been used on the wing, so he might play next game against the Rangers on the wing.
Right. I mean, Friedman is, I think, at a league minimum salary, right? Russ, he's at $700,000. Yep. So is Luke Shen, and Luke Shen is not a top 4 defenseman anymore. He's in his late 20s or early. I think he's 30 now, but he's a $700,000 contract, and he's a right-hand shot. If a team is shorthanded defensively, they might claim him.
And he's already played in Philly. I thought about this, like when I saw it, I'm like, okay, it's interesting concept here. He liked it here, and the Flyers, I mean, he might be he's granted, he's not Niskanen, but he is definitely at least a skilled player who's pretty solid.
The thing is, like we were talking about other defensemen that might potentially would have been available. The Flyers need a top 4 option.
They do. Shen just can't skate well enough for it.
Well, there's no question that they are talking to Nashville about Ekholm, and and I've talked about that in my blog a couple times now, and I've heard it from both sides of it. I've got good sources in both Philly and Nashville. There's no question that discussion is going on. They're not the only team, of course, talking about Ekholm. Pittsburgh is another one, and that's always when the Flyers and Pittsburgh are involved in a bidding war. That's a problem. Because they can tend to drive the price up with each other. So I don't know where it's going to go to, but Ekholm is probably the perfect fit for them.
He is the perfect fit for them, and they're this is where you decide if you're going to give up some assets and make a run, or are you going to just sit tight with your assets and hope you can get through? But again, I would look at it like this. I know I have to give up some assets, but I also know this Flyers team can't get out of the second round of any playoffs. They will not get out of this division. They're never going to beat Boston the way they are. So you have to look at that and be realistic. Now, we also have to remember they're run by a corporation, and fans are going to soon be in this building. So if they get in 2 rounds of home playoff games, that might satisfy them on the ledger. And that's the other part of this.
Yeah. I mean, someone wrote in the chat room, bad blood from the Weber offer sheet with Nashville. No. I mean, that's long since passed. And when that happened, Boyle and Holmgren were still buddies. It was just a business thing. It was a purely business thing. So they all get that. No, I think that when you look at it, if it comes down to Pittsburgh or Philly getting Ekholm, the Flyers have more to offer. They have more prospects. They have more ability. They have more they can do. So you would think at the end of the day that they would get him. If you're gonna make that trade, you don't wait until April to make it.
No, I would have to make it now, right?
You make it as soon as you possibly can, because, like you say, you want to get him in. You want to get him used to playing with players. But Ekholm is he's a definite. He's a good penalty killer. He's a good power play guy. He can do everything. He's really
a load of points, but he moves the puck. He does everything you want him to do.
Yeah, he's very much like Niskanen in a lot of ways. I think better, but it's my opinion.
Well, I think he's better in the sense that he does have some offense to offer, where Niskanen's offense left him the last 2-3 years of his career. But I don't know if he's better at that one position that Niskanen did get very good at, because Ekholm's been moved around. So I don't know about that. Yeah,
that's true. And will he be better? Would he be better playing with Provorov? That's the other thing we just
could be.
It could be, but I think so. I think that division. Now moving past that division, let's go to the the Honda West division. We've talked about this one plenty, but and we were just talking about this earlier. There is a heck of a battle for the 4th playoff spot here in this division. I mean, it's going to be fun. I mean, Anaheim's win percentage is .395. It doesn't seem like they played 19 games.
I think that we're safe in saying that this is a battle for 4th, because I can't see any way Vegas, St. Louis, or Colorado drop out of the top. No. They may flip-flop within the top 3, but they're not falling out of the top 3 unless there's a catastrophic injury with one of those teams.
Right. Oh, very much so.
So you're talking LA, Arizona, and Minnesota battling over 4th spot, because San Jose is trash. And Anaheim, I think, Anaheim is sort of, they have young guys and they're rebuilding.
Right.
And, I don't think, even though they have a great goaltender in Gibson, I don't think they can really stick with that.
Anaheim and San Jose are kind of, they're only in it because of games played right now, honestly.
Right. I mean, San Jose, I just don't know. I mean, the Martin Jones experiment is over with. It's over. Yeah. I mean, they've done everything they possibly can, with the exception of getting rid of them. Yeah. They went out and they got Devin Dubnyk to be a 1A, 1B scenario. That really hasn't helped. I think last time I looked at the stats, Dubnyk was significantly better than Jones. Jones just can't be enough. I don't know what happened to this guy, but this is not the same goaltender who took them to the Stanley Cup final a few years ago.
Definitely not. No, I mean, I think they're really out of it. I mean, I feel like when I watch this division, I feel like Minnesota is the team that should get that 4th spot when I watch them play.
Yeah. And the biggest, we talked about boat anchor contracts. We've talked about Skinner. We've talked about Sergei Bobrovsky in Florida. Who in their right mind would take on Erik Karlsson's contract?
Yeah, Karlsson is really. I mean, it's a shame because he really has lost it. I mean, he just doesn't have any.
Well, I heard. The funny thing was, I heard, and I can't remember where I heard the report, but I heard the report that basically after his most recent surgery, that he can't fully flex or extend his surgically repaired ankle anymore.
Right.
And basically, he has no flexibility, so his skating is severely affected. And his skating was his game.
Yeah, that was his weapon. There's no doubt. The thing that I'll agree with Eck on with Minnesota is now that Matt Zuccarello's back and he's scoring at a clip of 7 points in his last 4 games, with Kaprizov leading the team in scoring, which is not
baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unheard of because we knew he would be a big force for them. they do have a chance, and Stalock's yet to come back. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, think about the interesting thing about Minnesota is they are 3 games over 500. A real 500, which is like, to me, like LA's 1 game over. LA's 1 game under 500. Arizona's 2 games under 500.
Well,
I mean, it's like the Minnesota is definitely in a different spot there. They are,
I think if they get Stalock back to be their super backup like he was.
Well, I don't see,
but I don't know if he's going to make it back.
Russ, I don't even know if they really need him because as much as they thought that they didn't want to rush Kakkonen, his stats are basically the same as Cam Talbot. He's 6-4, 915 save percentage. Yeah. Talbot is 3-2, 920 save percentage.
No, I get that, but if you're going down the stretch,
yes,
last month of the season, I still think you'd rather have Stalock in there.
Yeah, you want the experience, but right now, Kakkonen's the starter.
Yeah, he's a good goalie. He's a good goalie.
Yeah, I mean and that having a 3 goalie system like they have right there now doesn't hurt them either. They would be a tough out for any of the Vegas, St. Louis, or Colorado teams too. They would be that would be a tough battle, I think. A bigger series than people would call it for.
I think St. Louis has really made a case for us to pay more attention to them, and I think the Avalanche did show a few flaws in Vegas for sure. I do.
Yeah, I mean, Binnington is back. That's the big thing in St. Louis. Like Binnington is.
Well, I mean, again, people were too harsh on him. They always have been. They always will be. But he's a good goalie. And look, Berube believes in him because you know what happens when Berube doesn't believe in a goalie, like Steve Mason, as an example.
Jeez.
Yeah, we've seen it.
But do you remember that? Yeah.
Oh, I remember that for sure. Yeah, there's no question about it.
I
mean, the weird thing with Vegas is they've played 11 home games and 5 away games. That's
helpful.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, it helps to play at home. Even though there's no fans, it's still playing at home. It's much easier.
I know that you mentioned this a couple days ago in one of your blogs, and I hadn't had a chance to mention that. Yeah. Okay, Binnington is a UFA.
Yep.
Binnington is coming. He's won a Stanley Cup in the last 3 years.
Yep.
I think St. Louis wants to keep him.
Oh, they definitely want to.
Yeah, they want to keep him.
They want to keep him, but if he's looking to hit a jackpot, then there are a number of teams that will pay him the jackpot. One of those teams is not the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I don't know about that.
Maple Leafs.
Why would you say that?
I don't know about that. I talked to some really good sources on this one, Mike.
Because they don't have the cap space to pay him more than they're paying Freddie Anderson right now. I'm not saying Freddie Anderson is going to be the answer for them next year. The Leafs may have to go out and trade for a goaltender. I just don't think that. Do you think that the Leafs are going to spend as much on Binnington as Calgary is spent on Markstrom? I don't think so.
If they identify that as the issue from keeping them from winning the Stanley Cup, and you could get a Stanley Cup winning goalie and just have to spend a little more, I think they'd spend it.
He's from Toronto on top of it all. He's another kid from Toronto.
Right. They'll find it, Mike.
Then he would have to take not a hometown discount, but he would have to take less than he would market value to sign with the Leafs. That might be
Binnington. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's like you're going to a team that's like really one of the top teams in the NHL right now. You're going back to play for obviously the team you always dreamed to play for.
The point I'm making, Eck, is if he wants to play for the team that he rooted for as a kid, then he's going to have to take less than he would have to take if he went someplace else. I'm not saying that he's going to take $3 million instead of $6 million. I'm saying he'd probably have to take what Anderson is making right now or close to it.
Okay, but let me ask the most important question. This is probably the most important question I could ask on the show today.
Sure.
Mike, who is a better goalie, Jordan Binnington or Frederik Andersen?
I can't tell you. I don't know.
You can't tell me.
Well,
if you're basing it on the 1 year that he won a Stanley Cup, then Binnington. But I'm looking at the career total.
Yeah. Well,
okay, Mike.
I think Binnington's.
Enjoy your bubble.
I mean, I think that. I mean, what Binnington has shown you that we haven't seen from Anderson, despite the fact that I think Anderson is a very, very good goalie, is that Binnington has shown the ability to win in the playoffs, right? That is something that would be very important to Toronto.
I keep saying that is not Anderson's. That is not on Anderson. When you're playing,
no, hold on. This is where you're wrong. When agents go in and talk to owners and GMs and they're talking about their goalies, they talk about save percentage, Mike. They don't talk about excuses about what the defense is like, because the save percentage is the goalie stat.
Okay.
And Binnington has a much higher save percentage than Freddie Anderson does. That's just a fact.
Okay, Binnington in the year that they won the cup had a .927 save percentage. Last year he was .912. This year so far he's .914. Okay?
Right.
Anderson, as I pull it up here. Thank you. Okay. Anderson, the first year in Toronto was .918. The second year was .918. The third year was .917, playing over 60 games. Last year was .909.
And what is it right now?
Right now it's .905.
Here's the thing, though.
That guy's better than Binnington. How could you tell me that?
None of that matters as much as making the big save at the big time. Like, to me, that is the goalie. That is what a goalie gets paid to do. Like, and that no matter how much I like Anderson, and I think he's a really athletic goalie, he's really fun to watch at times, but there's no question that he has not made the big save at the big times a couple times.
I interviewed Berube, myself and Jason Martinez. We interviewed Berube like 3 months ago. Keith Jones was on the show too, and we interviewed him, and basically he said he likes Jordan Binnington because he will make that right save at the right time.
Yeah, that's what he does. He does, and you saw it when I covered covering them against Boston of all teams. You know, a team that Anderson has had a little trouble with, Boston. Covering Binnington against Boston in the Stanley Cup Finals, I was amazed at like Binnington's ability to make big saves at big times. Like, he really has that. That's the only reason the Blues won that series. Binnington stole that series, honestly, from the Bruins.
Mike's going to talk about when Anderson did that with Anaheim. That's what he's going to do.
It helped to have like Niedermeyer and Pronger in front of him.
No. It was 2015. Neither one of them were on the Ducks roster. They made Game 7 of the Western Conference Final against the Hawks, with Frederik Andersen leading the way. So the fact that he hasn't won a series in Toronto is the fact that Toronto's defense, not just the blue line, but the team defense, up to this year has sucked.
All right, Mike, you're in a court of law now, and you're sworn to tell the truth. Yes. What is Freddie Anderson's record in Game 7? There you go.
I mean, that's like, and it sucks. I mean, I'm not, as a goalie, I feel bad for the guy.
He might be 0-8, but he hasn't really won a Game 7 in a long time.
He's not 0-8.
I mean, I feel bad for him because as a goalie, I know it's not his fault, you know. But he's got to make.
I think some of it is his fault.
I think he's 0-3. I think he's 0-3 by men. Yeah, 0-3
in Game 7s in his career.
Yeah, he lost the one in Game 7 against Chicago in 2015. He lost. I think he lost Game 7 in Nashville the one year. That was 2014. And then he lost the 2 to the Bruins.
Look, I think it's fair of us to say that Bruce Boudreau could never win the big game. It's also fair of us to say Freddie Anderson has never won the big game.
Right, and that's the truth, unfortunately. I don't know. It's tough to say.
I'm still gonna fight it.
It's fine, you know, and I appreciate that, Mike. I do. I appreciate that. Finally, the Central Division real fast.
Here's the real answer. Blame Jake Gardner. There you go.
Well, there you go.
Continue.
Finally, the Central Division real fast is running out of time. Like we talked about Florida being the top. Carolina has come on really lately too.
That's a paper tiger because James Reimer is in goal.
Okay.
True.
Tampa, you know, they're right there too. Obviously, they're going to be there. The regular season doesn't matter that much to Tampa. I think you said that them winning the Central really is meaningless because you know, and we know that the first day of the playoffs, just like Patrick Kane came back the one year with Chicago, you know that Kucherov is coming back the first game of the playoffs. Yeah, you know it.
Yes. And
then you really have 3 teams, kind of Chicago, Columbus, and Dallas really battling for the next spot. Nashville and Detroit are really pretty much out.
I think Dallas has 6 games in hand.
I got to give Hudobin credit. Right now, he's playing the part, man. Like
he looked great last night. I'm telling you, in that game, he was like that game should have been 9-0.
He had 49 saves, right? I mean,
he was unbelievable in that game. I mean, honestly,
and he go on a run. Like if he can, he is going to be one of the best stories we've ever had in the NHL because he was a backup forever. Like I said, he was the #1 ranked European goalie in his draft. He largely got ignored. He always was ignored as a backup. We ignored him because Bishop was there. He gets to the Stanley Cup. If he were to win a Stanley Cup, we would all be like mesmerized at what this guy has pulled off.
I mean, didn't he at one point back up Rask in Boston too?
Yeah.
Like he's been just like kind of crazy, and then lost his job when Thomas came in.
Yes.
But, it's just nuts. I mean, he is, and just watching him play, he's just good. He's just really good.
He's unorthodox, but it just in the long haul as a number one is a tough job. It is.
It is, and he's playing a lot, and he needs to make a lot of saves. And last night, man, he got no help at all from his defense in front of him. That game was like 1-1 midway through the game, and it was all because of Khudobin. It was just there was no reason for it to be 1-1 at all. So I think that I got a feeling that Columbus is like the team that's going to end up getting that spot. Though I just feel like that they are going to. I mean, they haven't played well either, and yet there they are. Do we think
Tyler Seguin's coming back this season?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
He had double hip surgery. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the chances are about as good as Ben Bishop coming back.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, Dallas. Yeah, I mean they're going to have to play a ton of games. The
thing that's amazing right now is how Pavelski's playing. The way he's playing in the regular season is the way he played in the playoffs, and the way he played last regular season was abysmal.
So true.
And Gurianov's been a real nice. And actually, Jason Robertson's on like a 6-game point streak too. Who's another kid with a great shot and a big body. I know all the Toronto writers write Nick's brother, but again, he's a hell of a player himself.
Yeah, he is. He's a really good player. But I think the really kind of sneaky stories in this are the top of the division. Like the two teams that really aren't in the Central Division, Florida and Carolina. You know what I mean? Like this is a weird thing to me. Like the top 3 teams aren't really in the Central Division.
I mean, but do any of us think Carolina could win the Cup without getting a goalie? No.
No, I don't think so either. But
and their defense is great. It's literally.
You can say the same thing about Florida, really. I mean, it depending on what Bob does, I guess. If Bob can get really hot enough, I mean.
At least there's somebody there that leads you to believe that if he were to get hot, you're right. It could happen.
My question is, if the divisions were the way they were usually, if we were in a normal year, this is a fun favorite thing to talk about tomorrow. Who would be in the playoffs? You know what I mean? That's maybe a fun thing we could discuss tomorrow, because I think that, we're seeing there's so many different really kind of like Florida is definitely in the playoffs.
Yeah.
With this team in that division.
Well, the funny thing is if you're looking at obviously the schedule is imbalanced, but if you base it on the records, the team that would be out of the playoffs in the Atlantic would be Montreal,
right?
Because it's Tampa, it's Boston, it's Toronto, it's Florida, and Montreal would be 5th.
Those 4 teams really, I honestly think, are better than anybody. Like I think
here's the big question, Eck. Also, this is a big question, Michael. Like, is Jake Gardiner going to lose his job to Jake Bean now that he's finally gotten a chance? Because Bean's got 5 points in 8 games. I think the answer is over the long.
I think Jake Gardiner is Seattle bound more than likely. He'll be exposed, but
Carolina, Jake brings up in the chat room is something that is definitely possible that Carolina gets Jake Kemper, and I think that is something that is absolutely out there.
Darcy Kemper, yeah.
Darcy Kemper, not Jake Kemper. Who's Jake Kemper?
All right,
Darcy's younger brother.
Is he like a field goal kicker in the NFL at some point? Who am I thinking of?
No.
Isn't there a Kemper field goal kicker in the NFL?
Not that I know of.
I think there was. Anyway,
there's a serial killer named Kemper.
I would just say this.
Sorry,
there
is.
Not doing thinking of.
We thought that Carolina was going to get Leonard, and they blew it. How do we know they're not going to blow it on Kempner too?
You don't. I mean, you really you don't. I would.
Well, Russ brought the point up that when we were talking earlier that right now, as well as Colorado and Grubauer are playing, their backup is Hunter Miska. They're going to get a goaltender before the deadline.
They will.
Sue's, whatever's going on with him, I didn't really, I wasn't tracking what was going on, but apparently
they still got an upper body, which could be like a concussion situation.
Yeah, they're going to have to. They have the cap space, and they have Stanley Cup aspirations. They're going to get themselves a backup goaltender.
So let's put this out for Eck terms. This is Joe Sakic versus Don Waddell. Who is going to win that, Eck?
I don't want to talk about that.
Remember, without the buzz.
Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.